My pranams. My name is Rishi Nityapragya, and I have recently written this book, Celebrating Life, which is published by Penguin International. I feel the nature, the Brahman, the universe, has bestowed such limitless powers, infinite siddhis in human consciousness. Along with being successful in our relationships and professional fields, exploring this infinite potential within also is the purpose of human birth. It's a very scientific, very technical process of unfolding these layers and layers of siddhis within us. And that technical process is the theme of celebrating life. I feel every individual soul is potentially divine. Uncovering that divinity within is the purpose of human birth. And that's the theme of this book. That's why we have written Celebrating Life, 6 Steps to Complete Blossoming of Your Individual Consciousness. Please enjoy. Lots of love and pranams.
Well, a very good afternoon and welcome back to Studio One. We are honored to have with us our panelists for another intriguing session on death and essential realism in fiction. Today we have with us Ms. Ana Filomena Amaral. Ana Amaral, novelist, historian, and translator, is a Portuguese awarded writer. She is an experienced interpreter and translator in several European languages, particularly German. She works for the Ministry of Education in Coimbatore. She has already published 6 novels in Portugal and 2 of them were published in USA. She has also published historical monographies, 12 published books altogether. Anna, let me just tell you, it is an absolute honor to have you here. And while I'm at it, shall I say good morning to you since it is a morning from where you are? So, a good morning. And now we have with us Miss Mona Verma, who is an award-winning author of 8 works of fiction. She has edited various science journals, self-help books, biographies, and is a regular feature writer for online newspapers. Her books have been subject of thesis for many research scholars, and excerpts from her book have been used in ICSE ELT series. She co-owns Disha, a corporate training firm, and is the recipient of the Women of Substance Award, Hindustan Times Women of the Year Award, and many, many more. We also have with us Mr. Anirban Bhattacharya, Miss Anirban Bhattacharya, who is the author of The Deadly Dozen, India's most notorious serial killers. He is the co-creator and producer of a crime show of television, Savdhan India. He is television content producer, having produced Crime Patrol, Fear Files, etc. He is an actor, having acted in Sui Dhaga and Mission Mangal. He is also a stand-up comedian. We're not deep diving into crime for his television shows or book. So let me just tell you, it's an honor to have you here. And can I just say I'm a big fan? So thank you so much. This session is going to be moderated by Ms. Kenna Shri. Kenna Shri is a writer, poet, and storyteller. She has written for the Huffington Post, Hindustan Times, Women's Web, and She the People, among other writing forums, and writes a column for Times of India Web, besides running a popular personal blog, Words and Winginettes. She is a TEDx speaker and gets a mention as 100 influencers to follow on Twitter, 100 inspiring women at workplace, and more. Her biography features in the book Folk Tales, Inspiring Souls of Our. Ma'am, it's an absolute honor to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this with us. Warm welcome. Now, I wish I was doing this in real life, but here's me handing over the virtual mic to you. Please take forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to PILF, Pune International Lit Fest, Manjari, and the entire team to get us all on board together. Hello and welcome to the third day of the much acclaimed festival of 2020, but this time reaching you digitally across. Today in this session, we discuss an extremely intriguing, elusive topic that never fails to consume us: death, an essential realism in fiction. This session will be of about 45 minutes, followed by last 10 minutes of question and answer with the stellar authors you just met we have on board today. So while you join us in this chit chat, though virtually, do not forget to put in your feedback, questions, and share with us whatever is running through your mind in the comments section. Death is arguably one of the most recurring themes in literature. From justice to rites of passage to grief, it tends to consume you as a reader. From early modern French tragedies imbued with violence, or the images of women as victims or murderers, like in folkloric Greek songs, or be it the books from Harry Potter series, fantastic literature, or the death of superheroes as illustrated in many Western comic books, or it is in the form of representation of grief and loss of the beloved ones. Death is as reflecting as criticizing. Let me welcome the fantabulous authors once again on board today who will take the conversation ahead with me. Please meet Anna, the novelist, historian, translator, Anirban, the author of The Deadly Dozen. We happen to be friends also. I know him personally, and trust me, I know he's such a humorist at heart that he makes me crack up after every sentence of his, and I wonder how he manages to write crime novels. And then we also have Mona, who's an award-winning author of 8 works of fiction. Again, we happen to know each other from the literary events and conversations. Really, really a pleasure and a privilege for me to have you with us in this conversation. Open the questions right away, without any further ado. I want to know from all three of you about, the initial idea of death in your novel, the way you portrayed it. How easy or how difficult was it for you to develop the plot or develop the dying character in the novel? So we maybe begin with Anna first, maybe.
Okay. Good morning. It's a pleasure to share this space with you and to be in this amazing festival. My writing is always connected with the reality. So it's what surrounds me that inspires me. It's what I live, what I sense, what I dream, what I experience that inspires me for my writing. And death is always present as it is in the reality. It's not easy to speak about death. We struggle a lot. We cry a lot. We suffer a lot. But writing is, for me, all of this. And because these are the feelings that make us humans. And writing, for me, is the most completely expression of mankind. So I think death in this novel that you mentioned, the Chasing Walls, it's really what is around us. Because Albert, the journalist that he's the chaser of the walls, he doesn't create them. He wants to take them down. But this is an awareness. I intended with this book to make a statement about the walls that still exist. In a certain way, to make them more alive for all the others as they are for those who are living the suffering and the drama of their existence. And so I'm going to stop here and then we can continue.
We'd like to the others on the panel also to address the question in maybe one line or two before I go ahead with the main set of questions. I just wanted to know about the brief idea of death that you try to portray in your novel and the characters that you chalk out. Anirban?
Yeah, the only certain thing in life is death. and that is the tragedy or whatever you may call it. That's the thing that we are certain about. I think Shakespeare wrote it very well when he said, "As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for
Wow.
their sport."
Yeah, yes.
It's like naughty boys killing just flies. We are the flies.
Yeah.
In existence. We have to die someday. I'm shit scared of death. I have panic attacks, um, including last night when I thought, oh my God, okay, right, I'm 48, I've got another few. So, anyway, whatever. So that's the way it is. In my book, I was dealing with serial killers, and they were the wanton boys who were literally picking off their victims one by one. And it was because it's a true story, because it's all true stories, the 12 serial killers. The tragedy was more enhanced for me as on a human level, when a killer would kill a 6-month-old baby or a 3-year-old girl. And so sometimes, so the question I left in my book was, what if that girl hadn't spoken to the serial killer at that point of time? She would be alive today.
Yeah.
And it's all a chance. We are all people stuck in this rock which is hurtling down in space. We have no clue what's going on, actually. We are
So,
all wrong place, wrong time, right place, right time. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, that is how elusive death is, and that is how it comes to us. My God, coming to you, Mona.
Yes, thank you for your question, Kenna, and a very warm hello to both Anirban and Anna here. Anirban, your answer doesn't make my life any easier because I've turned 50, right? So if you at 48 are scared of it, for me it's like staring me in the face. Well, anyway, coming to the answer, jokes apart, death and realism, I believe, walk hand in hand. In the arts, the accurate, the detailed, the very unembellished depiction of nature of life, all the while also rejecting anything which is very fairy tale-ish and they lived happily ever after, very utopian idealization. That doesn't work. And what works is what is relatable. When we craft very genuine characters and very genuine settings, it comes immediately relatable. The dark flavor is almost unmistakable in my writings because I write on partition, I've written about child widows and Banaras. So, how can I stay in denial of something which is so real and is realism as we call it? When God is a River was a book which dealt with partition and the diaspora leading to unprecedented massacre. Lost and Found in Banaras was a book which dealt with death and its consequences. All the at various levels, the social, the practical. So it was not difficult for me to put all that together in stories because I belong to Haridwar, where there's this constant strive to free yourself of the continuum of life and death. And also I grew up with migrant grandparents from Pakistan, so those stories were part of my bedtime stories of what children read in history books. And also I believe in, because I do so much of mythology, because Valmiki said that shloka is born of shoka. So
Okay.
death and sorrow is an inevitable and is the only promise that life keeps with us.
Wow. So one thing that I could gather from from the whatever you had to say was that context did play a part in your case while you were penning your plot or your characters. But in case of Anirban, I see something very unusual because the camaraderie that we share tells me that he is an extremely humorous person at heart, and the funny bone comes naturally to him. So, Anirban, my first question is to you. You are basically a very witty and a funny person from inside. So, was writing stories and gory tales on brutal death against the basic temperament and taste of your reading and writing? How did it come to you?
So the humor in my life is a defense mechanism. Uh, I put on a happy face. I'm a Scorpio. I'm the most morbid person you'll ever know. I am obsessed with death. I'm obsessed with the macabre.
Wow.
So I am. I mean, I love humor as well, but that's anyway. Dealing with death, no, it wasn't against temperament. I've been doing a crime show since 2012. I've been producing, researching, writing a crime show based on true crime. So it sort
Mhm.
of came as naturally to me as an extension, this book. And
Mhm.
all of us have grown up reading detective novels, whether it's Agatha Christie or Sherlock Holmes or Perry Mason. So we have an instinct for a good mystery.
Mhm.
So therefore, this book was an extension of that, about serial killers, their modus operandi, what goes on in their heads, how they choose their victims, and of course the cops who then ultimately catch them. Um, so it was, I think, a natural, extension to what kind of work I was doing or I am doing, and it's good stories. At the end of the day, it was disturbing. For a year, I was mentally very disturbed while writing this book, especially when it came to children victims. For no fault of theirs. Uh, Death usually comes to us. We have a cardiac arrest or whatever it is, but you know, when you have a 6-year-old girl being picked off the street and then raped and slaughtered, what was her fault? You know,
Mhm.
uh, so that kind of death is unjustified. But yeah, it was disturbing.
Yes, totally, totally get that. Um, when we talk about death, the various forms of portrayal of death in fiction, in realism, I would like to ask Anna. Anna, through Albert, like you just mentioned, you represented death as a mass scale trauma. So you talked about war and torture and even genocide. So how difficult was it for you to write the plot? And what message did you want to send across to readers by such portrayal? What went through you?
Yes, so that book, The Chasing Walls, was the second book I wrote about walls, because my writing started right with the Berlin Wall in 1989. I was in Berlin in August, and what I saw was so impressive that when I came home, I had to write something. And so the book came out precisely 1 month later after the Berlin Wall fall. So the walls are very, very connected with my writing, and also with my will to denounce certain realities. And the walls are really one of those that make much suffering and tragedy in the lives of those who live in places with walls. And there are a lot of people doing that, or suffering this tragedy. And so I started with Albert, because Albert was a journalist in a newspaper in Lisbon, and his life was completely empty, was without any sin. So his boss told him to go to Berlin immediately before the fall, to make part of that moment, that historical moment that he was sure it would happen. So, and when Albert lived these circumstances, the euphoria of the people free from the wall, he thought that he could never return to his normal and easy and meaningless life in Lisbon. So he went to chase other walls. And the next one is the Korean Wall, and then Belfast, and so on. So I chose the most, for me, the most important walls, those who make more suffering. But there are a lot more walls than those I refer in my book. And but this is not only about death and suffering, because places where Albert arrived, there was always the beauty of the landscape, the gastronomy, the music, the culture, the amazing heritage of the people who were dominated by this wall. And also, he realized that the soul, as your Lord Krishna says, the soul of these people, the will of these people could not be pierced by any weapon or burned by the fire. So, and in the same time, he was trying to neutralize these walls, these physical walls. He was acknowledging his own walls, his psychological walls, his fears, his frustrations, his absence of love, his absence of knowing what is to share something.
So beautiful. So, yes, please go ahead. You were saying something.
No. I was only thanking.
Also, it is very pertinent to say that death can never be spoken as of an act in a silo. It is always balanced with the beauty of life, and sometimes so that life comes as a slap on the face of death. So it's actually a very beautiful balance between the two.
Yes.
Anirban, sorry, Mona.
Just
one of your-
sorry,
Yes,
sorry. Because
Go
I was
ahead.
saying that death is always present in my books. For instance, I'm now finishing a trilogy dedicated to the environmental issues. They are novels, but always with this environment aspect behind. And death is present, but this is the death with a great message of life, of hope, and of believing.
Exactly
Because we
that.
have to believe that we can do something against what we are doing against the earth. And this belief is also what will make us probably soon to save this planet where we are.
Yes, how beautiful. Coming to you, Mona, if I take you to your book, God is a River, it's a story of a 3-year-old girl who believes God to be a river, least realizing this very notion would lead her to her demise. She gets slaughtered by Muslims and also by Hindus. And in your book, you touch upon a very, very poignant and controversial topic, less spoken about, which is death by religion. Why don't you throw some light on it?
Thank you for your question, Kenna. Well, a lot has been said about and written about the diaspora and the slicing of boundaries of Hindustan into twin states of the present India and Pakistan. But what I wanted to write about were the undocumented personal narratives. We have all read about the moderates, the extremists, the revolutionaries losing their lives, and we owe our freedom to their patriotism, of course. But I wanted to write about the fact that the British rule was not just a rule from the era of Warren Hastings to Lord Mountbatten. It was not just the roundtable conferences and the Simon commissions. There were those unwritten human narratives, their pathos, their diaspora, which was much more powerful than all these things put together. And that is where, when I heard the story of, as Anirban said, about these young kids picked up, brutalized, raped, and then they die. So that is where I also have a common thread here about the 3-year-old Noor, who, when caught in the massacre, as you just said, and all possible human insanities come into play when it comes to war. So when the Hindus ask her religion, she obviously says Noor, and they push a dagger into her stomach. And when the Muslims ambush her, the little girl just suddenly remembers and inadvertently states that God is a river, for which they understand the connection to Ganga Jamuna and assume that she is a Hindu child, and they too kill her. When whatever little was left of her as life. And she loses her life to the inability to state her religion. And then, of course, the mindless rage that ensued. I remember my grandfather, who brought me up, he used to often say about partition कि जब पत्थर मारने आए तो वो भी साथ आए जिनका गुनाह मैं अपने सर लिया करता था. For Anna's benefit, I would like to translate is, when the people who came to kill us or to get us were my friends, were my neighbors, the ones I called uncles and brothers. So this is what he used to say, that this is how the mindless insanities come into play. And when people think about the partition, they reminisce about death and death alone. I'm sure even in those times, even in those dark times of political sensitivity to a slightest sensitivity to the slightest of issues and the unrest, there must have been stories of love, trust, and hope and camaraderie. But what these people remember is the loss. So this was how death was the only way through what people thought revenge, or by targeting women and children because they felt that they were the vessels of honor for the family. So, what they remember was death and death alone. And for these people, the stories of partition was not about that era or the political, social, religious settings of that time, but about who could kill whom.
Right. My God. Coming to you, Anirban, when I was reading your book, The Deadly Dozen, honestly speaking, after every chapter, I would take a pause and let the story sink in, which took a lot of time because every story gave a sort of insight into the psyche of criminal mind. How brutal can human beings become? So whether it was a school teacher, Cyanide Mallika, who killed multiple paramours with cyanide, or a mother who trained her daughters to kill children, then a thug from the 1800s who slaughtered more than 900 people. Then it was also a manservant who killed girls and devoured their body parts you were mentioning about. So those are very bone-chilling stories. I want you to share with us probably an experience of a sleepless night that you had while penning down the story. And how did you overcome it?
Right. I just want to add to something that Mona had just mentioned about the mindless insanity from the partition era. And it's still going on today.
Yeah.
It's still going on today in the name of religion.
Yeah.
We have archaic laws being formed in a certain state where interfaith marriage is not being allowed, even when they are consenting adults and when the parents are agreed to the marriage. We are going back into into bigotry. We are going into fascism, into hatred. We'll never learn. We'll never learn from Germans what happened to the Jews. We'll never learn. It's being done again and again and again. And the world watches silently in this amazing PR exercise. Anyway, that's my ideology thrown in for the day. So death. I was reading about death when I was chosen on the panel. Especially in fiction, we still can't get over the death of Dumbledore or Anna Karenina. That ending is so, you're left after reading that whatever 900-page book, and then Anna's gone, and you're wondering, why did I ever read this book? So death is really, even in fiction, sort of leaves us pining. For me, one of the nights when I was writing the book, I remember being very violently ill. This was the story about a mother who taught her two daughters to pickpocket, kidnap infants, and if they were caught by the public, they would then throw the infants down onto the floor and smash their skull to create a diversion from the crowd. And when I read about that, I literally threw up. I was violently ill. And then even I had to take a break between writing each story. Each story would take me about 20 odd days to write. Then I would rest my mind for about a week, cleanse my system, watch things on television, watch stand-up comedy, and then again dive back into the process. I decided to watch Game of Thrones at that point of time, which was very disappointing because my favorite characters got killed off in every season. So it wasn't helping much. But that's the way I sort of dealt with it.
Yeah, I know. One has to find one's own way of dealing with death. At least narratives of death. See, in fact, that was also my modus operandi while I was rereading your novel. I would take breaks and then get back to reading it again. I would like to ask you, Anna, do you believe that literature per se seems to annihilate death? Do you think that literature has the power to keep readers tame and conquer death in due course of time while reading and not get scared of it any longer?
Yes, I think so. I think so, because for me, there is always hope after death. And there is always a renaissance or a rebirth with death. That is always what I try to write on my books, and this is the message I would like to share with all the readers. But when we are writing a book where the impressions are so deep and so dramatic, it will haunt you. It will trouble your sleep. It will makes you wake up in the night and think, how is this possible? How can we in 21st century be so barbarian as we were, for instance, in Middle Age? And when we read books or see films of the Middle Age, we are completely astonished. How could mankind do this? We are still doing this.
Yeah.
And we have not great, but big and responsible world leaders that are, in a certain way, spreading this hate, this violence, this genocide. Lately, one of them said, one of the wall that I write about is the Sahara, the Western Sahara Wall. And lately, one of these leaders said that it was right, Morocco's dominating the Western Sahara. This is an atrocity. This is only these words are an offense to the mankind. And as I write in my book, one word was enough to bring the Berlin Wall down. Just one word. So words can really bring wall down, can really start wars, can really end wars, and can really make us more human than we are now.
Wow, I love when you say that it can make us more humane than what we are now. That's so beautiful a thought. Although it is inevitable that every time we speak of death, we tend to get dark and serious and get into this pondering mode. Let us come to contextual literature of late. There's an accusation.
Unless and until we are Buddhists, and where the Buddhists look at death as a journey into birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we are all optimistic, right? Or even if we believe in reincarnation, this is just a stepping stone into the next one, and an evolution of our soul and karma. And my name is Anirban, which means I will never get nirvan, which is or I will always be stuck in an endless cycle of life and death.
I'll join you there. I'll join you.
It's ironic. I'm sitting in this session.
Okay. This is an accusation on death as a tool of realism in literature, which any of you could take. Why not Mona? Mona critiques have argued that sometimes death in a fiction is used as a gimmick, included with the intention of nabbing awards. So is it an easy way for writers to include death in their narrative or story so that they can have an emotional depth and impact and nab awards? Do you really think this accusation holds true?
Well, I really wonder about the validity of this statement and where it has really come from, Kenna. Because death is the ultimate truth, and a character born or placed in the story will meet an inevitable end. Or otherwise, it becomes a fairy tale, as I said, and they lived happily after, right? That is, using death as a gimmick for awards sounds a bit preposterous for me. So, because life doesn't go by the exotic and the poetic conventions of romanticism, right? So, when we talk stories, it's given that it's about the importance of the character and his challenges, right, which could also result in a death, over action or plot. The complexities, the behaviors, the motives, they have to be very plausible and logical events and not overtly sensational or dramatic just to insert a death, like, like we do insert a slide in your PowerPoint deck just to make it more attractive to the reader. No, we as authors are hefting a huge responsibility on our shoulders, so we cannot lead the readers astray. But also, I would say that a lot depends on who we are writing for in that way. Because when you are dealing with science fiction or fantasy, it may alter the kind of structure that we adhere to, and we may follow a different track. And there death or life after death may need to be put into the plot to make it more palpable. And I actually wish, on a lighter note, that one would get awards through writing about death, because the amount I have written about death, if it were true, I would have happily and deliberately ended all my books either in a graveyard or in the Battle of Waterloo.
Totally, take that. Totally take that. But I think that's a very pertinent point that you raised about who are we actually writing for. For instance, you talk about today's contextual novels which are produced for young adults. They do have dark themes, and the ones with dark themes tend to do better than the sweet and mushy ones. For instance, Green's The Fault in Our Stars. It has presented not just a heart-wrenching tale, but also given us two immortal protagonists who we are absolutely in love with and we cannot forget. So, Anirban, do you think, how do young adults react to dark-themed books?
I think for young teenagers about 15, 16, 17, 18, they like dark themed books. For example, 13 Reasons Why, which got made into a series on Netflix, was a bestseller. They are also at that kind of age where, also from the kind of childhood we had, and the exposure to what the children of today are having, it's very different. We didn't know about death and this dark literature. We hadn't heard of dark literature. There was nothing called dark literature during our time. It was either good books or bad books, or classics or bestsellers, or pulp or literature. So this genre of dark, I think it's a modern phenomenon. And kids like it, and kids love it. Look at Twilight, for that matter. It's a love story set against vampires and werewolves and all of that, and kids are loving it.
And even the mafia and the dawn and the way underworld plays a role. I mean, all those get into young adult literature very easily. So probably it's because characters in these stories are forced to consider how.
I think it's more important. It's more important. Why they're popular is not because they are dark, but because of the journey of the characters, or the interesting plots. I think one of the biggest stunts that, and I may get stoned to death for this, but I think Jon Snow dying was such a wimp of a stunt in the Game of Thrones. If you've killed him, then why bring him back? Because obviously you realize that the popularity of the character was so much you couldn't kill him. It's like Arthur Conan Doyle bringing back Sherlock. Being forced by the readers to bring back Sherlock even after he's dead. So I guess it's the plot and the journey of the characters that really endears the readers. At the end of the day, I think no stunt will work.
Yes,
it's the journey and the character.
Okay. So one last round of questions before we take the audience Q&A. Anna, I would like to know from you your writing process. Please tell us about the way you write. What is your regime of writing, and how do you put your books for promotion? Do you use social media? Because the theme of the PILF this year is also how social media accentuates and adds to the value of book.
So I'm not very keen in the social media, but of course I put my books there, and but really I was hearing my other colleagues, and I think that writers, as most part of the artists, they have a very big responsibility. So, and in my case, I try to put my words to the service of what is really needed in the world in the moment, because it's what worries me. It's not because I decide today I'm going to write about walls. No, it's because in my inner, I feel that walls is one of the most ashamed realities of our world. So I had to write about it because I couldn't sleep if I didn't write. So I couldn't be in peace with my soul and my mind if I didn't write it. So it's the same about this trilogy about the environment. Everyone should be worried and should do something about environment. As I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist, so I can do nothing practical in this area, but I can write about it because I'm a writer. And so I would like to know that my readers read my book and keep something of my words in their mind, in their heart, in their soul. Because if I write for those who are going to the beach and want to spend a quiet moment, my books are not to appease souls. My books are to unrest souls and minds. And so, and really, I really am not so worried about who is reading my books. I really would like that a lot of people read them, because I think that maybe they could learn something from the books. Maybe they could discover some incredible realities also from my books. But as the teacher I was, this feeling of teaching or explaining or bringing something to others is still in me, and this is the main purpose of my writing. This is why I write. Of course, if I don't write, I can sleep, I can breathe, I can live, so I die. So the only way I can stay alive is to give voice to my worries, to my dreams, to my nightmares.
I totally hear you. Totally hear you. Please tell us how much.
So there is a lovely quote. I'm just following up from Anna, what she said in her very emotional, self. There's a great quote by Noam Chomsky. He said, "The responsibility of the writer as a moral agent is to try to bring the truth about matters of human significance to an audience that can do something about them."
Yes.
We are writers. The only weapon we have is our pen and our mind. We are not biologists. We are not armed specialists. We are not government workers. We are not world leaders. But what we can do is influence the world, to first expose the truth to the world, and then help them to make the change.
Yeah,
So,
totally get that. Totally get that. Anna, there's just one follow-up question to what you had to say to us. How much of research do you on an average give to a book?
Yes,
What is the time?
usually I need more than 3 years to write a book, because I really need to make a lot of research, and that takes a long time. And in this research, you are being, and I'm going to use the same word that I used in the panel yesterday, you must be possessed by the reality you want to describe, or you want to from what you want to make a narrative. So, and I usually say, when I'm feeling that I'm living a dual life is the moment when I can start to write. So it's the moment where the words come out without almost any effort, because I usually say, you already filled your soul and your mind and your heart. So now you just need to let the words come out. So, and I write all the time. So when I am in this moment where the research is matured, where the ideas are matured, where my sleep is restless, so that is the moment when I have to start writing, because, and I'm achieving now that moment because I just finished the last book of the trilogy called Deserts, and it's because of the deserts are taking possession of the earth. As you know, there are a lot of places drying out, and places where in the past was green now is sand and desert, and this is a main threat for everything, for life, not only for humankind, but also for all kind of life. And and now I'm starting already to think about my next book, because it's about a continent that is and was always explored, a target of all the ambitions. And maybe you know already the name of the continent I'm speaking about, Africa. They are still people suffering in one of the most richest continents in the world, and people have no way to survive, because the whole history of them is a history of exploitation, war, crime against mankind, and still is. Not only with this pandemic that affects us all of us, but also with the poverty, the extreme poverty they live there. And we have to do something about it. So for 2 or 3 months that I can't sleep thinking about Africa and the Africans. So my next book will be about this reality where death is always very, very near and always very, very present. And we can do a lot of it, a lot against this.
Looking forward to your next book. Looking forward to how you find Africa, and what picture of Africa do you give to us. Coming to you, Anirban, and then to Mona, I have the same question for both of you. I want to know about, one, your research work, the kind of research that you had to do for your novels, you for The Deadly Dozens, and you for probably Lost and Found in Benares, so to say. And secondly, what do you do to promote your books other than relying on the publisher? Mona. Yes, Mona, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted your permission as to not clash. Well, we are in our element when we are writing. I completely agree with Anna. It's like we are possessed. It's not a deliberate effort at any point. Once an idea takes shape, no cosmic force can keep you away from your pen, right? So I believe discipline, research, ideation, reading on the subject, and responsibility as a writer are the various cornerstones, not just one, but various cornerstones that are that support our writing process. And I truly hope my publisher is not watching this, but I am absolutely not a social media person. Occasionally something about the literary events or books or a picture of a book, but no more, because I find that it really saps my energy and time, and I can redirect that time to more reading, ideation, research, dreaming, whatever, even for a caffeine fix, but no more than that. But when it comes to the research, when it came to Lost and Found in Benares, apart from various visits to Benares, because there is something that needs to support your sensory tactile imagery, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you feel, right? All that has to come into play when you are writing about a place, because in case you've not addressed that sensory imagery, you can't write about a place. It doesn't come to life. And it is literature which helps you process it very well. And when I went to Banaras, when you I saw the tonsured heads of these child widows, I felt that, what a constant reminder of loss. In everyday life, we tell people, okay, get up, shove it over your shoulder, walk on, live the moment, live for the moment. Don't talk about all these things or whatever doesn't agree with you. But for them, it's a constant reminder on their loss that they're wearing on their domino all the time. Be it that pallid 5-yard saris, the unstitched saris, or the tonsured heads, and then ostracized from the society. I wanted to understand the social reason behind it, the religious reason behind it, the psychological reason behind it, and how the male proponents of law and religion were the ones who were propagating this tradition. Yes, at one point they were manhus or like the untouchables, and at another point they were also staving off the call of flesh by these people. And that is where my protagonist, Brinda, who's 18 and falls in love with a young boy and wants to lead a normal life like girls her age. And she, in a very wistful moment, one day writes about her husband. And she says that between your death and my life stands Banaras. Banaras means widowhood for her. So, why, when death is feared in other parts of the world, how does it become a currency for Banaras was also part of my research. Why people in Banaras accept death, realize it, and surrender to this ultimate reality. It's like everyday business here because it's their currency. Life and death literally exist as Siamese twins in Banaras. Even the Dome Raja, the Chandal who burns the bodies, is called Raja following the story of Raja Harishchandra. So why the Domes or the Chandals? They're elevated to that status, otherwise they were ostracized from society. What was the significance of the Moksha Bhavans and the Mukti Bhavans, and why do people go to Kashi to die? Was also part of my research. And as the Salman Rushdie once said, the realism can really break a writer's heart. So when you see those things, as Anirban said, it's like you have a chill running through your spine. And sometimes you freeze looking at the kind of audacities, the kind of evil a human mind and a human can resort to. But coming to talking about death, when I was researching, I came across this shloka which said, "Jatasya him dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mrityasya cha," which means if death is inevitable for the born and it is certain as birth for the dead again, and you cannot do anything about this, then why grieve? And then why, while living, also stay in denial?
Yeah. Wow. I almost got blank for a while. I mean, this is what the topic of death does to us. It sends us in a different space of transience for a while. Anirban, how about you? One, research, and secondly, your idea of promoting a book.
Right. Banaras, absolutely, death is business there, and it's a matter of fact thing over there. That is also what shocked me when I visited Banaras. So matter of fact. Okay, so my research was absolutely painstaking. One of the reasons why I never wanted to write a true crime non-fiction book, but then I got into it, and then I had to deep dive. It took me a year to write. If you see my book at the back, there are, I think, about 30 pages of just citations at the back. It was exhausting. Going through court papers, eyewitness accounts, police records, Supreme Court judgments, all of that. Because what I found on the net was never always verifiable. So I had to really dig deep into research to do that. For publicity, I think gone are the days when the publishing houses actually marketed your books through the year. There are too many authors now, and I don't blame them either. Uh, so for an author, it's a responsibility to also advertise or promote the book through social media.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's on social media now. I mean, no one has that kind of money to put your book up on a billboard to advertise, or TV spots for that matter. So it's social media that's the quickest, fastest way to get your book out into the world. So I did a lot of promotions on social media. I created content myself. So yeah, it became it sort of I've though I'm a very traditionalist. I was a traditionalist. Now I'm not. I have understood that it is needed, especially for a debutant author like me. No one will know about my book till I am not shouting about it.
Mm-hmm.
And for an artist or for a writer, it's very well to say, "Oh, I write because I love writing." But if no one reads the damn book, then then your entire messaging is gone. The purpose of writing is to reach out to as many people with your ideas, with your child. It's like a baby. Each book is like a baby you're giving birth to, and you take her into the world and say, listen, hey, this is my child, look after her, give her some love, nurture her. So that's the way you have to promote a bit on social media, at least, and it's the easiest way to do it. And yes, it sucks your energy, and you
Yeah.
can never please everybody. So I had the funniest review on Amazon. Someone had ordered my book on Amazon, and the review said the packaging was very bad. I give it 1 star. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, what's my book got to do with the damn Amazon packaging? So
From side by side of
I was like, the other one
yes.
was, I hate serial killers. I give it 2 stars. Then why did you buy my book?
I just would like to say, because I forgot to answer that part, I love to speak about my books, not only digitally, but also and mainly presentially. So with my presence there. So that's the way I find to give love to my books and to share it with all the others.
Anirban,
Yeah.
I just want to add
Thank
that
you.
when he
Thank
wrote,
you.
I hate serial killers, we all hate serial killers, but not the books on them. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, my book had nothing to do with it. Anna, I have a favorite word when I reach out to readers on panels like this. In Hindi, I tell them that please buy our books because hum pyar ke bhuke hain. It means we are hungry for love. And Kenna knows this. I keep saying this to all the readers. Please buy our books because we are hungry for love. So
And
please
we are as
support us.
much hungry for your books and your beautiful work that you keep laying for us. Thank you very, very much
Thank
for
you.
being a part of this extremely enriching, invigorating conversation. Before we go ahead, there's this, like 2, 3 questions that I leave to the audience. While we recognize death as the annihilation of others, we take the responsibility of our own demise as somehow being unnatural. Does the reader in the process imagine and accept his or her own cessation? Who knows? While you read the
Well,
book, you answer.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful session. Trust me, it was just the most amazing thing we had. So, thank you so much for the session, and it was indeed a very, very great experience. So, our next session begins at 3 p.m. right here back in Studio One after 15 minutes break. And trust me, if you're a writer, budding writer, or are trying to publish a book, this one is going to be of great help. It is a session on publishing in post COVID times. Yes, you're going to get all of that information right here. So don't forget to be back in 15 minutes, right back in Studio One. Thank you so much.